Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new explainer. Today, we're unpacking what is absolutely one of history's greatest underdog stories. We are talking about a regional group that literally started with almost nothing but a shared cultural identity and somehow rose up to absolutely dominate the Indian subcontinent. It's a wild story full of cunning tactics, brilliant administration, and some serious historical disruption, so let's dive right in.
Okay, let's dive into this central question we have today. How in the world did a local group from the rugged terrains of Maharashtra manage to outmaneuver the colossal Mughal Empire, challenge powerful European forces, and build the largest Indian power right before the British took over? I mean, it sounds like the plot of a blockbuster movie, but this is pure, documented history.
Here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll look at the cultural spark that united these people. Second, the unconventional tactics of their empire. Third, building the Maratha state. Fourth, the mighty queens and their massive expansion. And finally, Section 5, the decline and their enduring legacy.
Section 1, Roots of Maratha Unity, the cultural spark. Military empires almost never just pop up out of nowhere, right? They usually start with a powerful, shared cultural identity, and the Marathas were definitely no exception here.
The real foundation of their unity actually began as a spiritual and social awakening between the 7th and 17th centuries. It was known as the Bhakti movement. The saints of this movement boldly challenged caste discrimination and opposed rigid, meaningless rituals. And the best part? Instead of preaching in complex languages that only the elite could understand, they used simple Marathi poetry and songs. This was a real game-changer. It gave ordinary people a profound sense of dignity and confidence, bringing folks from completely different social classes together into one shared identity.
So the crucial point is that this cultural unity eventually evolved into a powerful political idea. They called it Swaraja, which basically translates to a free and self-ruled kingdom. This wasn't just about swapping one king for another. This was a deep, thematic drive. The people were genuinely inspired to fight for their own independence and rule themselves, rather than just being subjects to some distant, uncaring empire.
Which brings us to the visionary leader who took that cultural pride and forged it into a formidable political and military force. Born in 1630, Shivaji was raised in Pune, a region that was constantly battered by wars between surrounding empires. Seeing all this hardship firsthand, a young Shivaji started capturing neglected forts when he was just 16 years old. Talk about an overachiever, right? He was already developing and actualizing that bold vision of Swaraja.
Section 2. Tactics of an empire. Outsmarting the giants. Having a vision is one thing, but how do you actually fight empires that outnumber you 10 to 1? Well, you change the rules of the game.
The Marathas knew they simply couldn't stand face-to-face against those massive, heavily armed Mughal armies on an open plain. So they embraced guerrilla warfare. They used small, incredibly mobile groups of fighters to launch surprise attacks and hit-and-run raids. Relying on their deep knowledge of the mountainous local terrain and sheer speed, they would strike exactly when the enemy least expected it, just completely disrupting these larger, slower armies.
And get this, that ingenuity extended to close-quarters combat too. Take the Waga Nak, or tiger's claw. It's a deadly, concealable weapon. Back in 1659, the Bijapur Sultanate sent a massive army to crush Shivaji, led by this very experienced general named Afzal Khan. Shivaji arranged a personal, supposedly peaceful meeting with Khan, but during what was supposed to be a diplomatic embrace, Shivaji cleverly used the hidden tiger's claw to fatally strike the towering general. Meanwhile, his hidden forces simultaneously ambushed the suddenly leaderless army, an absolutely stunning strategic victory.
But my absolute favorite story of Shivaji's cleverness has to be the Great Agra Escape. In 1666, the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb insulted Shivaji and actually placed him under house arrest in Agra. But Shivaji was infinitely patient. He started sending out these daily gifts of sweets to holy men in huge woven baskets. At first, the guards checked every single one meticulously, but human nature kicked in, Over time, they grew lazy and careless. Seizing the perfect moment, Shivaji and his son just hid right inside the empty baskets and slipped past the guards. A literal 17th century heist that completely humiliated the Mughal emperor.
Tracking their key milestones, it's just a rapid-fire succession of bold moves, from defeating Afzal Khan in 1659 to daringly raiding the incredibly wealthy Mughal port of Surat in 1664 to fund his kingdom, to that brilliant Agra escape in 1666. All of this momentum culminated in 1674, when Shivaji formally crowned himself Chhatrapati, meaning sovereign king, at Raigad Fort. He was no longer just a rebel, he was officially a monarch.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how forward-thinking he was as a ruler. While expanding his land territory, Shivaji realized the absolute vital importance of the coastline. So he took a very rare and revolutionary step for an Indian ruler at the time. He built a powerful navy. By setting up formidable coastal outposts like the Sindhu-Durg fort and deploying specialized Maratha naval ships, he locked down his realm against the Mughals and even the encroaching European powers.
Section 3. Building the Maratha state. Visionary administration. Because as any history buff knows, conquering territory is only half the battle. If you can't govern it, you're going to lose it.
So Shivaji transitioned from warrior to an incredibly efficient administrator. He centralized power by setting up a council of 8 ministers, known as the Ashta Pradhana Mandala. He ended hereditary government posts, which, let's be honest, were notorious for corruption back then, and instead paid his officials directly from the state treasury. He'd even regularly transfer officials so no one could build up a little local fiefdom to challenge the state. He even provided state pensions to the widows of fallen soldiers. It was a remarkably progressive and fair system for the era.
And his governance wasn't just about cold military efficiency. It had incredible human depth. There's this amazing quote from his orders about gathering supplies for the Navy. He told his officials to buy teak wood, but explicitly warned them against cutting down fruit-bearing trees owned by the locals, like mango or jackfruit trees. He wrote, "Hurting them will only bring sorrow. Any success gained by oppressing others will not last." I mean, that perfectly captures a compassion and long-term thinking that made the everyday people genuinely love him.
Section 4. Mighty Queens and Expansion, the Next Generation.
Let's move on and see how this all builds, because the Maratha story absolutely does not end when Shivaji passes away.
One of the most important figures to step up is Queen Tarabai. In the early 1700s, after the tragic death of her husband, she took charge during a supercritical moment. The Mughals were heavily focused on the south, leaving their northern territories vulnerable. Showing incredible strategic timing and total fearlessness, Tarabai gathered the Maratha armies and launched aggressive campaigns straight into Mughal territory in the north. She proved to be an exceptionally smart military tactician.
Then, later in the 18th century, we see another phenomenal leader, Ahilyabai Holkar. Despite suffering massive personal tragedies, she went on to rule a vast kingdom in central India for 30 solid years with renowned wisdom and peace. She used her state's wealth for massive public works. We're talking building roads, ghats, and famously rebuilding sacred sites like the Kashi Vishwanath temple that previous empires had destroyed. Under this continued leadership, the Marathas facilitated a massive cultural revival all across India. They promoted local traditions and actually replaced Persian with Sanskrit in official documents, making diplomacy feel way more culturally rooted. They turned cities like Tanjavur into these vibrant, multicultural hubs of art, music, and Bharatanatyam dance. They weren't just ruling over people, they were reviving an entire cultural ecosystem.
Section 5. Decline and Enduring Legacy. But, as we know, all empires, no matter how brilliantly designed, eventually face their twilight. By the late 1700s, the main rivals left on the subcontinent were the Marathas and the encroaching British. They fought 3 incredibly fierce Anglo-Maratha wars. But why did the Marathas ultimately lose by 1818? Breaking it down, it came to a fatal combination of factors. Internally, the Marathas started suffering from disunity. Their once unified regional chiefs often disagreed and fractured their combined strength. And externally, well, they faced a British force that simply had better central organization and vastly superior military technology.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer footprint of what they achieved. At its peak, the Maratha Empire covered massive stretches of central and northern India, with their tributary influence extending even further out. They proved indisputably that even the most massive, entrenched imperial powers could be challenged and replaced by a unified, strategic group of people.
And that is their true enduring legacy. The Marathas didn't just build an empire, they cemented the ideal of Swarajya. Their sheer courage, their remarkably fair administration, and their unbreakable belief in self-rule inspired generations to come. In many ways, they planted the very early ideological seeds for India's modern freedom movement against colonial rule.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. We've seen how a single, powerful idea, paired with innovative tactics and relentless execution, completely disrupted the seemingly invincible power structures of the 17th century. Looking at our world today, if the spark of Swarajya could build an empire from the ground up, what established systems today are just waiting to be disrupted by a unified, innovative group? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.